Well, I'm just going to start off today by saying thank you all for coming to the Sizzler User Conference. It's an absolute pleasure to see all of you guys, and I'm really excited to talk to you today about building better email. As the slide says, my name is Andrea Gagne, and I'm the iModule software product owner for email marketing and messaging. Our talk today is going to come in 3 parts. I'm going to give a brief introduction, let you know about my approach to product ownership, which will kind of help you understand a little bit why we're doing the things that we are, and also kind of help you know a little bit about me. We're going to do a comparison of the email platform, the things I was talking about last year wanting to do, the things that the system does today, and hold me accountable. And then finally, we're going to talk about what's next and look at the new renovation goals we have moving forward. So without further ado. Very often I feel that I resemble this little curious misfit here and the quote next door, especially given that I didn't come from a very strict software background. I studied public relations and graphic design in college. And really up until the point that Hurricane Katrina happened and I found myself at Rice University interning with the IT department, I really thought that I was going to go sort of the public service route and work in public relations, perhaps for a government agency. But a really crazy thing happened. I got a job training higher education departments on the content management system at Rice University. And as a result of that, my eyes were opened into this world of software development within the higher education space. And that sort of started a pivot in my life. And I think, you know, going into that role, didn't know anything about software, but I was really, really curious. And so I'd get a call and someone would ask me a question, well, how do you do this? And of course I had to know, I had to find out. So I'd go and do the research and figure out how it was done and go into their office and train them how to do it. But the thing I love about Wally as a symbol for curiosity is that when he interacts with the ruined world, he brings to it an open mind and a curious mind. And it allows him to inspire others as he diligently makes incremental improvements, really defining order from the chaos. And he never gets discouraged by the effort or all the work that's left to be done. So as a product owner, I hope to embody the spirit of Wally. Another dimension of my work can be described as the process of distillation. As I take part in Sizzler, as I move forward in the software development lifecycle, I take client ideas, comments, feedback from many sources, and I really bring that down into a set of principles to which a particular development initiative must adhere. If why, what, and how were formed into a Venn diagram, I'm looking to live in that tiny little intersection point where nothing is missing, nothing is extraneous, and nothing is wasted. Of course, as with the reductive spell we're seeing here, if I go too far, then I'm going to simplify something to the point it becomes worthless ashes. And that's the point where I want to pull back and say, okay, we've got this as simple as it can be. The next piece here, we have my favorite comic in the world. Any reader does a really fantastic work through Image Comics, and that's Rocket Girl. And for those of you who don't know, Rocket Girl lives in the future where the corporate state is taken over, and the only people we can trust with law enforcement are idealistic teenagers. But obviously, she lives on the edge, and I feel that way a lot as a product owner, where I need to bring a lot of bravery. But at the same time, my success or failure is defined by small margins. So as open-minded as I want to be, as Wally-like and full of wonder as I want to be, I must also be equally critical, brutal in fact. Every story, every feature, every product must be dissolved of all of its assumptions, and each assertion I make has to be proven. Brant Cooper tweeted recently, "Unanswered questions are not evidence of anything. And as a product owner, I'm interested in the evidence." So let's talk about last year and this year. For those of you who know me, I'm very, very open about, I'm very into openness, transparency, and directness. And I want you to hold me accountable for the things I say on this stage and in other venues. So last year at this time, I stood up with a slide very similar to this and said, these are the things I want to do. I want to improve email delivery. I want to bring schedule any time and send immediately. And I want to bring an email reporting product that gives near real-time metrics, cross-client metrics, makes performance easier to see at a glance, and also introduces tagging. So today, I get to be really excited, really proud, and also mad as heck because that last little one at the bottom is not done yet. I was really hoping to have that for you. So there's just that one checkbox. But as you look back at the platform a year ago and today, my hope is that I've inspired enthusiasm about the direction that we're taking and also established trust with you. You need to know that I'm not going to promise the moon and give you moldy cheese. Unless you want moldy cheese, in which case, follow me, we're going to the cheese shop. And I hope that I've also demonstrated to you guys in the last year that in addition to listening, I'm also taking action. I was looking back on the 69 email enhancement requests that were made at Sizzler 2015. And even I was surprised to find out that 45% have been adopted as features or are slated for development over the next 18 months. For myself and the rest of the product team, we want to continue building on this trend. And I know that with your help and feedback, we can do that. So in the epic refrain of West Wing, what's next? What I'm working on now is replacing the email editor and the flow for creating emails. I want to continue building on the improvements we've made to email reporting and extend them. And I also want to look at the concept of list management and subscription management and make serious improvements in that area as well. So we'll start to go into these a little bit more detail. So as those of you who were at my idea exchange yesterday know, we use the Telerik WYSIWYG editor for both CMS and email. The downside is sometimes that editor abducts your HTML and CSS and replaces it with an alien clone. It looks very, very similar, but you can tell the difference, and so can I. So we're going to introduce an advanced workflow for coders. We won't touch the HTML, we won't touch the CMS you put in that empty box. The only thing we're going to do is add the necessary headers, tracking, and subscription management, so that those coding cowboys who like to take control and really build those emails from scratch have the availability to do that.
Is there a timeline for
that? Most of the stuff that I'm talking about today, we're looking at kind of the 2017 timeline for that introduction. But I will cover a little bit later kind of some of the stepping stones that will lead to that development. So for those iModules clients who are happy to go through life never looking at HTML or CSS, we're going to be introducing a new editor that automatically makes emails mobile friendly and is guaranteed to output code that is compatible with 90% of email readers. Yes, even that pesky Outlook. And I'm very excited that for those of you who are interested, you can actually test drive this editor in the Tech Town Hall. We're also moving beyond just the editor itself We're not just swapping that out, we're also redoing the whole email creation workflow. This includes template selection, previews, scheduling, and we're doing all of this with a very specific destination in mind. We want to be bringing to you the ability to do A/B testing and marketing automation. As our editor stands today, the way that we're creating emails, the process that you're going through, it's not compatible with an editor that facilitates those features. So that's why we're hitting the editor and workflow first, so we can introduce those features without disrupting the workflow. Another workflow we're looking very closely at is the approach to adding community content. Right now, as you know, you may be saying, hey, wait, Andrea, you missed a step. We got scheduling emails anytime, send immediately for most of our emails, but not for the community content ones. Shouldn't you go back and do that? Well, I'll tell you an interesting story. When I found out how much time it was going to take to introduce community content, give it that send immediately feature in the old workflow, and I compared that to how much time it would take after we introduced the new editor, I said, oh, this is a no-brainer. If I can hold off on delivering this feature, I can actually, in the same unit of time, give you more and better email features, right? Just if I swap up the order. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take those community content elements, like news, like events, class notes, job postings, and we're going to turn those into an API. And through that API, we're going to feed that into a new workflow that brings that into your community content. The other really great thing about this is this opens the door for us to turn that API around. And when you need to integrate content from Encompass into a third-party site, that API will also be available to you for that endeavor. So I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about how we're reimagining the approach to community content. What we've identified are two scenarios. You've got content on your site, you want it in an email. And that usually comes in one of two flavors. Either there is a specific series of items that I want to show, and I know what they are. I want to feature the golf tournament and the Albany happy hour. And I know that I want those two items in this piece of email. But I want them to be dynamic. So I can go ahead and create this email now and fill in the details on my event later. So for that scenario, you're picking specific items and then you're customizing the order that they come in. And so here you'll see the steps. I choose a content type, I search, I select the items, I add the email, I sort. In contrast, the other workflow we have is a dynamic feed, where basically you have a set it and forget it email that you want to introduce, right? You know that there's a spot in this email for maybe 5 news items or 5 events. And whenever this email goes out, you know that you want it to be 5 upcoming events, most recent, and you just want it to go out like that. So in that scenario, it's really entirely separate from wanting to choose specific items. You're just saying, hey, I want 5 items, and I want them to go. So here's the new workflow for that. First, if you know that you wanted to custom sort specific items, you will go ahead and drag and drop an item into the editor, and then that pops up this modal window. You'll pick from news or events, depending on which one you want to use, and then you'll start to search the content types. And one really neat suggestion that Jeanette brought up that we have adopted is that when you're searching for these content types, the only content types that will result are content types that have active content. And that way you don't end up accidentally choosing, the Albany Club News and then not having any items underneath that when you move on to the next step. So you can pick as many content types as you need. Then you'll come to this screen where you're able to use the search box at the top to search by the name of the article or the name of the event. And that will auto-filter that list, and you'll be able to hit the plus button to add those to your email. So in this particular scenario, this editor has chosen 3 items that they want to, they're non-chronological, non-alphabetical, they're just 3 event items from their website that they want to include. The final step is really where I feel we have the greatest ground to gain. One of the challenges that I feel like has prevented more people from taking advantage of bringing dynamic content in Encompass into an email is a lot of the uncomfortableness that comes with trying to define style. And so what we'll be doing is we will embed into this module some of the top styles that are requested from our email marketing department, from our design department when they're doing custom templates for folks. And so we'll preload those styles already in the module so that you can select from those and then customize them to your needs.
Does that mean we'll need new templates when this comes online?
So there will be a need to bring new templates on. The client services department is working on a process of migration that will facilitate that. But it is an accurate statement to say that templates that were built for the current editor are not 100% compatible with the new editor because of the shift in technology. But we are accounting for that in the go live process. So I've got some content here. I can drag and drop, shift it as I need. Alternately, if I want to feed instead, you'll see that the options change. You are asked to indicate the max number of items you want, choose your content, choose your sort order, and voila, there it is. So the next thing I'm going to talk a little bit about is how are we going to bring all these features to you? I'm a really big fan of beta for all, right? It's in line with this concept of continuous integration and bringing you things of value as soon as we have them to show. So in that, we are going to first introduce item number 1 at the bottom, something called a beta template editor. In this scenario, we have an abbreviated workflow where you can create templates, use the editor to modify those templates, save them, and also preview them out to yourself. And this will give you an opportunity to gain familiarity with the new tool before we start obstructing your workflow. What we don't want to do is create a lot of anxiety within your departments by shifting too quickly and replacing what you're familiar with something new. The next step is we'll bring in that new community content flow that I talked about into the beta template editor. Next, we'll bring on the advanced editing mode. And then, once we've determined that the client base is ready to make that transition, we'll do the changeover from the current editor to the new editor. And then in that way, we can make sure that, again, we're not pushing you guys too fast to make a change that you're not ready for. As I mentioned in the beginning, we're going to continue to focus on email reporting. And that is going to take a number of, it's going to be a number of features that represent that, but I really wanted to highlight what I feel are the 3 most important. The first is a metric API. This will be delivered in the 3rd quarter of 2016. My guys have done tremendous work making a public API that's RESTful. You'll see here a snapshot from a tool called Swagger, which allows you to interface with the API and view the calls, even before you're a web service client with an authentication call. This is really designed to give you the action level data in a non-aggregated form. So for example, that first item at the top, get messages, you'll be able to input a date and time and say, hey, I want to see all the messages that I've sent between this date and this date. And what will come back are the details about that message. The unique key for that message that can be used in other API calls. You'd also be looking at the details for that message. What was the subject line? What was the pre-header? what was the subscription category. From there, you can use the message ID that you get from that call to get things like the bounces associated with that message, the clicks, the delivers, the hyperlinks that were in that message, the opens, the recipients. And in this way, you can bring this data back into your database of record, whether that's Solution, another system, a homegrown database, and really start to collect and aggregate very granular data. And in each of these cases, every action is tied back to a constituent, at the very least with their email address, but very often with their primary key as well. One of the things that the account managers talk to me most about, and one of the questions you guys have submitted most and requests you've made the most since seeing our beta email reporting, is when are you going to show us data by device? So I have a couple slides here. It's my promise to you that it's coming. We are in fact capturing this data now, and we are going to introduce it on the email detail page. And so here's an example of seeing for a given metric, in this case opens, how those opens were divided between different generic devices, so phones, webmail, desktop, tablet. And then this is a drill down even further of the clients, right? Gmail was top, then Yahoo, other webmail, AOL, and Hotmail. And I think for many of our higher education folks, since many of you send on campus, a lot of times you're going to see that other webmail, depending on the editor, excuse me, the email client that you use on campus. And of course, tagging, that pesky little guy I didn't get to last year. So what we're going to do is introduce tags. And our goal is to help you better understand trends in email performance. So to start, there'll be a set of labels that are shared across all sites. Since last Sizzler, I've been working with many of you to identify the best set of shared labels that will encompass your needs. And in email reporting, as well as the editor, you'll be able to quickly assign any existing label to a message. In this example, I chose the label general interest. Chose this general interest email from Western Washington, and I chose. All right, I chose to tag that just simply with newsletter. It will also be possible to create custom child tags underneath. So in this example, the parent tag is event, but Wentworth went ahead and created a child tag underneath that for golf tournament. This means that in email reporting, they'll be able to click on that golf tournament tag and compare the performance for that whole campaign set of emails. So all of their golf tournament emails for the given year that they're in, as well as previous years, they'll be able to look at that and say, okay, are we doing better with our communication relationship to the golf tournament, or are we doing worse? And the other great thing about this is you aren't limited to just one. So in this example from Nebraska, I would label this as a touchpoint e-card with the subheading of birthday, but it's also for memberships. And it's an expression of benefits and stewardships for members. And so in this way, they're going to be able to compare their email, this particular email, both against membership emails as well as touchpoint emails. And the beauty of this is it really helps define an excellent platform for trend reporting. When you're looking across your emails in aggregate, you'll be able to select a time frame, select a particular metric you want to focus on, whether that's conversions, opens, unique clicks, and it'll be a simple and user-friendly way to understand, okay, in the last 3 months, which type of emails had the highest number of conversions? When you're looking at a particular email, you're also going to be able to compare your email's performance via the parent tag to other iModules clients. So you'll be able to say, how are my event emails comparing to other iModules client emails? Am I doing better than average, worse? And this is really where we start to capitalize on the community that you guys have, not just from anecdotal evidence, but from data and metrics as well. So I wanted to give you guys a chance to see the audience tags that we've defined. And we feel like even if there are subsets of this or sub-tags that you want to define that are specific terms for your university, that these will be able to be applied across campus and across clients. We also have topic tags that run the gamut. And you'll see that in certain cases, we've actually codified some sub-tags. So for example, underneath events, you see homecoming and reunion. That means that you'll be able to compare your reunion emails, not just to general event emails across the client base, but for homecoming emails or reunion emails across the client base. So for the last portion of this presentation, this is really a fun audience participation option. I have a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of ideas about how we can improve list management and subscription management. So I want you guys to take a moment and identify one of the individuals here with a microphone, raise your hand, and answer the question, what challenges do you face when configuring who will get a specific email? And this will help me in defining the direction of the product in this area. Nobody? Oh, all right, we got a taker.
Hi, my name is Carla. I'm from the University of Iowa. We actually have not gone live yet. We go live in September, but one of the biggest challenges that we're looking at in email right now is that we have about 15,000 constituents in our database that share emails. And to be able to do the personalization and to be able to ensure that when a constituent is making a gift, they're only making a gift as themselves, not their spouse, or to handle our athletics givers who have joints on their accounts, so they don't want to join, they're giving join with their spouse. We would really like to have the option to be able to send multiple emails to the same email address. And I'm actually willing to give up my drink tickets tonight to anybody who's willing to vote on that. just find me, is that important? So.
I'm really glad that you brought that up. So the University of Iowa faces a challenge that many of you face. While to individuals of my generation, it seems completely mystifying that anyone would share an email. Like, why? There are people who do it. In fact, my dog sitter does it, and every time I email her about my dog Coco, I am in fact emailing Bob and Mary, and it's strange, but it's a real thing. And so I'm glad you mentioned we do have an enhancement listed in the Tech Town Hall that proposes a solution. And what that solution would be is if you're creating a list with constituent IDs, right? So not a list of email addresses that I can't necessarily tie back to a given record in your database. You would have the option to turn off the removal of duplicate addresses. So currently in the system, we scan your list and say, okay, if 2 emails match, we're only going to send 1 message. And as you mentioned, that prevents you from personalizing with tokens for folks who have shared addresses. So that's my sort of entry-level proposal to solve that problem. The tricky part is it creates new room. So when we send an email to Bob and to Mary, how do we handle subscription management, right? So if Bob says, I don't want to get popsicle emails, and Mary really wants popsicle emails, how do we reconcile those preferences? So that's going to be one of the challenges I'm looking to face as we try to meet that need. Thank you.
Susie Munoz,
Oh, hey.
Pace University in New York City.
Along the same lines of emails, and I think this came up at another session, the use of primary and or secondary emails and being able to send out to both of those at the same time.
Excellent case. So talk to me a little bit about what types of situations you face that would prompt you to want to send to both the primary and secondary. What is happening that is prompting this desire?
It's actually as a result of the kickbacks and the way that the current system works with the timing of the kickbacks. So I forget what the timing exactly is, but it tries it with the first email a couple of times before it actually is an official bounce back no longer accepted.
Mm-hmm.
But within that time, if within the person's profile there's a secondary business address, for example, the ability to be able to send to both of those emails before one or the other is considered official bounce back would be beneficial.
All right, thank you.
Another reason why people, at least I need to use both emails sometimes is because when we're emailing alumni about rankings, some rankings let you use 2 emails, and currently we can only send to one. So if we could send to both, we might have better response for those rankings.
Can you clarify that? I want to make sure that I'm understanding. When you say that rankings lets you send to 2 emails,
So it's like Business Week.
Okay.
They recently changed how they do their rankings. They're letting the schools actually email out the survey. So, and they allow you, there's like specific rules of what you can send.
Mm-hmm.
They say you can send to 2 separate emails. So for us, we have a university email that they keep forever that we would like to use as well as their preferred email. So that we can really make sure that they get the survey one way or the other.
Okay. So in this scenario, if I understand it correctly, the ranking agency says you are allowed to send this survey to a random sample of 500 people, right? But within that 500, if you have multiple email addresses, that doesn't count to your total. Is that a fair statement? Okay, cool. I just want to make sure I have it clear in my mind. Thank you.
Hi, Mike Manchester, Lafayette College. Our alumni relations group is already using the platform, but we're still in the annual fund stuck in constant contact. So have some video here. Towards the end of the fiscal year, or the end of the calendar year in particular, it becomes difficult when we're sending out multiple emails to different affinity groups. So we might send it to sports and then have a general appeal. And it'd be nice if there was a hierarchical structure where automatically we move people from the general appeal if they were on an email earlier that day to, let's say, a sports appeal or a club appeal, so that people don't get multiple emails in one day. Right now, I'm dealing with an awful VLOOKUP situation in Excel where I load all my lists into constant contact. And it would be really nice if the system could somehow say, hey, you're sending these 3 emails today. Bob will automatically get removed from the general appeal because he's going to get the sports appeal.
Okay. So I really see that as having 2 dimensions. So one is really a dimension related to frequency, right? So regardless of topic, I don't want a given person to get more than X emails in Y period of time, right? And then the other dimension of that you're suggesting seems to be, again, related to that sort of a hierarchical logic for inclusion, right? So on a given day, if you were a part of list A, then, so yeah, like list A is everyone. List B is a subset, right? But really what you want to say is, here are all the subsets I'm sending out to. Everybody who's left is list D. Does that seem like a fair interpretation?
Essentially, yeah, until you get into people who specifically don't want the sports appeal, but they're okay with getting the general appeal, but they
Got it.
Okay, so it gets a little fish there.
Yeah, and you've really just touched on one of the really challenges I have is that in talking to some folks, they really want to see a merging between the concept of list management and subscription management, but then there are aspects of that that are really meant to be separate. In that exclusion example that you're talking about. So thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Ron Carla with the University of Massachusetts. This may be going a little far into the weeds, but one thing that we would like to see is with email having better control over the tokens. So, for instance, we send out emails not just to alumni, but maybe people who are friends of UMass who aren't in our system. And it would be nice that if we could have almost a if-then type of statement. So, if we have a nickname, we use it. If no nickname, first name. And if no first name, then it inserts friend or, some other, field into the email because we're limited. We tend to go generic with a lot of these emails because we can't customize the token fields because some of these people aren't actually in iModules.
Okay. So again, I kind of see two aspects to that. One is a common request that we've heard that there should be a placeholder token, right? So in the event that a person does not have a value for a given token, there is some kind of safe substitute in its place. The other piece that I'm hearing to that is really this idea of the conditional population of data. So one thing that I can offer you today that a couple of clients have taken advantage of is something called a computed column. So you talked a little bit about having like first name or nickname, and those are all existing fields in your database. And what the data team can do is create an additional column whose value is dependent on the values of those other fields. I'm not 100% knowledgeable about what types of logic can be applied there, but if you stop by the data table in the Tech Town Hall, they can give you a little bit more insight into the parameters of what's possible, and also any kind of performance impact you may experience. I do know that if you have there's a threshold to how many computed columns it is wise to have. Right? Because at a certain point, you're using all computed columns and the processing for that becomes a bit of a burden. So there's a performance aspect in there as well. But they should be able to guide you in the right direction. Okay.
Hi, my name is Crystal. I'm from the University of San Diego Alumni Association. I actually just had the exact same question before, but can I step further with those different members that aren't alumni members in the iModule database? How do you, do the reporting for that at the end, segmenting this reporting of members versus non-members? Because in our specific situation, we just transformed our alumni chapters to become clubs to include parents of students, and they're not in the iModule system. So basically I'm creating, for each campaign, I'm creating two separate ones, one for alumni, so we can do the tokenized items, and one for parents. So it'd be great to put it all in one campaign, but then also have that email reporting of them separately, like opens and whatnot.
Okay. So my first question is really in relationship to the data. So is it the case that parents, and you said it was parents in the other constituency was alumni, is that accurate?
Yeah, so it basically is split, which is alumni and parents of current students.
Okay. So it's my understanding that, am I correct that in assuming that parents and alums are never in the same database, ever, anywhere?
No,
Okay.
It's in parents, that data is in a different
Okay.
system.
Um, so in order to, the root of the problem is really, from a data perspective, having a shared system of primary keys, right? So let's give an example. In the instance that Ronald, you graduated from the University of Massachusetts, but then you're also a parent of a student there. So So in that scenario, you would have a record with a primary key in your parent database that would be separate and different from the primary key in the alumni database. So in some senses, it's unreconcilable because of that distinction, right? And unless your campus system is willing to reconcile with a unified primary key, that's kind of a non-starter. But in relationship to email reporting, really, if they are entirely separate, I think the best method to go about that is that we're looking to introduce reporting that corresponds with role-based content. And in that scenario, you would have role A for alumni, role B for parents, and then you would be able to see the cumulative metrics as well as the split out metrics. And that is not something that exists today, but it's something that we hope to provide within reason. So what we can't do is sort of expand that into the infinite, right? So at a certain point, there's so many roles that it's impossible to produce rational looking reporting on it. And that's actually the problem we ran into, the reason we don't have it today is we let you create infinite variations. And that's kind of we'll put ourselves into a hole we can't dig out of. But we do have that use case in mind as we move forward with the editor and with the transition to how we hope to handle role-based content.
Miles Wyatt, Emory University. This has sort of been almost touched on, the ability to exclude one list from another. We have a few scenarios where this comes up. The two most common are dual degrees, where one school will schedule an email in advance, and then another school with some overlap amongst the alumni population will suddenly need an emergency email to go out. And we'll want to make sure that people aren't getting inundated with emails. So if you already got this one from the one school, you don't get the other. And the other time that this really comes up is Emory's very siloed. Annual giving operates kind of independently from the schools and units, which operate sort of independently from the alumni association. So if someone wants to send on a certain day and say the Office of Annual Giving is already asking for money that day, we want to make sure anyone who got that doesn't also get one for another. So hopefully maybe a simple exclusion, from the data viewer. Hey, can you give me access to your list and make sure no one who's on list A gives this.
Absolutely. So there's sort of three things I'm imagining when you talk about that. One is that concept we talked about earlier, where there are frequency thresholds, and that Paul is not allowed to get more than X emails within a particular time period. The other thing is really kind of a schedule management aspect. I do think we could do a better job of helping people understand when communications are going out, sort of a shared calendar concept, but that's probably too oversimplified of a visualization to be effective. So that's the other aspect. And the third, again, is just the concept of an exclusion list, right? So I want A and B, but not C. And so that would sort of be the third piece to it.
So just adding blood balance to the data board.
Okay. Now, obviously, a lot of these topics with list management have significant overlap with the work that we're doing in terms of standardizing the database. So for those of you who've had an opportunity to hear Gabe Garrow speak or talk to him or listen to Troy in relationship to that, the changes that we make in this management are really going to help you coordinate with that database restructure to really achieve some of these optimizations that you're looking for. So we definitely need to incorporate together to accommodate these use cases. Just one second.
2 emails to us. Because we got calls from people saying that they wanted to order to business email. And I don't know how it works today, it's so brilliant, but you automatically put the personal email and then the business email is ignored. That's what happening.
Well, in iModules, there's a concept of a primary email. Encompass does not actually care the nature of the email, simply that is designated as primary.
Okay, so whatever they had to think is primary, is where it's gonna go. But
Yeah.
if it was a business email, it should go to the business email.
Correct.
Okay, but I do know that sometimes they want it to order both, so that's another reason to use 2.
Okay, perfect. So we are just about out of time, so whoever's next is really gonna be the last person. And I think this lady on the corner had her hand up first, no offense, we'll chat later.
Hi, I'm Zen from American University, and I was wondering if there was a way to possibly dedupe, when we promote an event, we usually send out 2 emails about the event, and on the reissue, people complain that they've already received it and they've already registered. So I was wondering if there's a way between emails and events to dedupe the sending list so that people who already received the email don't have to receive it the second time. And is there a way to possibly get a search query on saved lists in modules? That'll make it so much easier because you have like 1,000 saved queries.
Awesome. So I know one of the focus areas that Sabrina Goldman is really, really interested in is this concept of being able, the communication lifecycle as it applies to events, and really being able to customize communication based on a person's registration status. So I definitely know that's on her radar. It is one of those areas where her area of focus and my area of focus sort of overlap in that little Venn diagram. But I definitely know that's something that she and I want to work toward. So, all right, folks. You've been positively brilliant. I'll be in the Tech Town Hall if you have any other questions, and thanks for coming to Sizzler in this presentation.